I'm Sarah, and this is Budgetsew, where we create stylish, fashionable looks as inexpensively as possible. Today, we're doing a sew-along to Simplicity 9553, View 2. Simplicity 9553 was published in 1971 and is a pattern for spats and 2 bags. View 1 is a lined shoulder bag with a zipper closing and is trimmed with appliques and metallic trims. View 2 is a lined shoulder bag with a flap. View 3 are the spats with a zipper and an elastic foot strap and have special stitch lines to make spats larger or smaller. The spats may be trimmed with purchased appliques and metallic trim or with buttons and lacing. I bought this pattern about 10 years ago from Value Village thrift stores for 99 cents. The suggested fabrics are velveteen, suede cloth, ribless corduroy, denim, canvas, duck, homespun, hop sacking, linen, and leather-like fabric. Corduroy may also be used for View 2. View 2 and 3 also in tapestry and upholstery fabric. I decided to make my bag out of a black velvet with a swirling gold pattern. I bought my fabric at Value Village thrift store during a store opening celebration. It was marked at $39.99 for 8.5 meters, but I had a coupon for 20% off, so I paid $31.99. That broke down to $3.76 a meter. What a steal! This pattern shows layouts for 89, 92, 112, 114, and 137 centimeters wide fabric, but my fabric was 140 centimeters wide, so I used my own layout, making the best use of the fabric in keeping with the nap of the velvet. Since I had 8.5 meters of it, I had plenty of fabric left over for other projects, including Simplicity 8243, a fun jumper. The link to the video with that sew-along is right here at the top of the screen. In addition to the jumper, I also made Budgetsew 6523, a classic blazer. The link to the sew-along for Budgetsew 6523 is right here at the top of the screen. I also refashioned a pair of skinny jeans into flared bell-bottom jeans using this fabric. The link to the video with that DIY is right here at the top of the screen. There was also enough fabric for Vogue 7784, a gorgeous hat. So stay tuned to Budgetsew for that sew-along. The lining fabric is pinky peach with black designs that I bought about 10 years ago from Len's Mill store in London, Ontario. I use this fabric all the time and I have lots left over. The last project it was used for was Vogue 8992, a lined wrap dress that's fitted through the bust and has the front extending into a collar, princess seams, inside ties, and hook and eye closing. It has narrow hems and top stitching and includes a stitched hem on the sleeve. You may recognize this dress from my Vogue Designer Sewing Pattern Haul video. The link to that video is right here at the top of the screen. My first step was to fold and pin the handle in half lengthwise with the right sides of the fabric together. Then I made a note to reinforce the side seams along the seam line for about 1 inch on each side of the medium dot, stitching through the dots. Once that's done, then I will clip to the medium dots. I pinned under 5/8 of an inch on the straight end of the bag to be pressed. Since I used velvet, I chose to steam rather than press this fold because ironing will pucker and pull the velvet in different ways, thereby ruining the nap. Then I prepared the lining the same as I did the bag. I folded over 5/8 of an inch on the straight end of the lining to be pressed. The side seams were reinforced and clipped the same as the bag. At the sewing machine, I sewed the handle. When sewing a pattern, I don't always follow the instructions in the order that they're written. So if you're following along in the guide, you'll see that I jump around from step to step. I try to sew as much as I can at my sewing machine before I have to switch back to pinning. Then I reinforce the side seams of the lining along the seam line for about 1 inch on each side of the medium dot and stitched through the dots. I like that the Simplicity sewing book had a handy tip similar to mine. It said, stitch as much as you can each time you are at the sewing machine without breaking the stitching. As you finish one seam, feed another garment section under the presser foot and continue stitching. It saves hand motions as well as thread. I'm going to try this on my next garment. Then I reinforce the side seams of the bag along the seam line for about 1 inch on each side of the medium dot and stitch through the dots. Then I clip to the medium dots of the bag fabric and then the lining. My mom's Simplicity sewing book from 1975 had recommendations for pressing velvet. It said, napped or pile fabrics such as fleece, deep pile fake furs, corduroy, and velvet must be steamed rather than pressed to prevent the nap or pile from flattening. Then I folded and pinned the bag with the right sides together and matched the medium dots. Then I folded and pinned the lining with the right sides together and matched the medium dots. Back at the sewing machine, I stitched the side edges of the bag below the medium dots. I used black Coats & Clark all-purpose dual-duty thread that I bought from Value Village thrift store. Usually I don't use second-hand thread when sewing my garments, but this thread was in a big bag of brand new Coats & Clark thread for $1.99. I think that there were 20 spools of black and white thread in the bag, so it was quite a steal. I checked the thread before buying it, and it was very strong and actually newer than some of the thread in my sewing box. Next, I stitched the side edges of the lining below the medium dots. This lining fabric was super slippery, so I had to readjust the fabric as I sewed. Once the seams were sewn, I trimmed the seams on both the bag and the lining.
Before I continue with the sew-along, please share this video with your friends and family. I'd love to help others sew and refashion on a budget and troubleshoot their favorite patterns. I also love sharing the treasure that I find at thrift shops. If you'd like to see more from Budgetsew, please subscribe and make sure that the bell is on so you receive a notification when I release a new video. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Budgetsew. Now, back to the sew-along.
Once the bag's side seams were trimmed, I turned it the right way out. The lining was kept wrong way out. Then, with the right sides together, I pinned the flap edges of the lining and bag together, matched the medium dots, and ensured that the raw edges were even. At the sewing machine, I stitched the flap above the medium dots. The Simplicity sewing book had some tips on sewing velvet. It had a section about napped and pile fabrics. It said, if garment pieces are cut with the nap running in opposite directions, the sections of the completed garment will appear to have been cut from different shades of the same color. The direction in which you lay the pattern depends on the fabric. Determine the direction of the nap or pile by stroking the fabric with your fingers on the lengthwise grain. If the surface feels smooth, you are stroking in the direction of the nap.
If it feels rough, you are stroking against the nap. Mark the nap with a chalk arrow on the back. After I had trimmed and turned the handle the right way out, I slipped the handle between the pressed edges of the bag and the lining and matched the small and medium dots. Then I pinned the pressed edges of the bag and lining together. Next, I stitched as close as possible to the pressed edges. I used a Schmetz universal needle sized 75 or 11 to sew this velvet bag. This is the same needle size that I used for my Simplicity 8243 velvet jumper and Budgetsew 6523 velvet jacket. I sewed this pattern previously, but it was the spats of View 3. I made covers for my Wonder Woman costume and used red swimsuit fabric for the spats. I bought a spool of thin white ribbon with gold edging at Dollarama, a Canadian dollar store, for the stripe down the center of the boot. Then I turned the bag lining side out. Threads magazine had some tips for sewing velvet, such as hand baste with one or more of 3 basting methods, double, backstitch, or diagonal basting. Loosen the machine tension, hold the fabric taut while you sew, use a walking foot, Teflon foot, or roller foot, and finally stitch with tissue paper or stabilizer between the layers and between the fabric and the feed dogs. To form the bottom of the bag, I brought the seams to the medium dots. Then I pinned along the stitching line between the small dots. One of the things that I learned when sewing velvet was that stitching lines tend to show because of its surface texture. Threads magazine wrote that it's best to choose styles with minimal design details such as darts, seams, buttonholes, and top stitching. Designs with simple lines and semi-fitted to loose-fitting styles best display the velvet's qualities. Gathers, soft folds, and drapey styles work better than those that are fitted and contoured. This bag was perfect for my black velvet. At the sewing machine, I sewed along the stitching line between the small dots. I like the tips for sewing velvet in the Simplicity sewing book. It recommended to fold, pile, and nap fabrics for cutting with the nap side out. If the fabrics are folded with the nap side together, the fabric will shift as you cut. My final step was to turn the bag the right side out and turn the flap down. Here is the finished bag.
To complete the look, I'm wearing Reitman jeans that I bought at Value Village thrift stores. The Catherine top is from the Salvation Army charity store. The Never Been Worn Barra Crown boots were a steal at Valley Village thrift store for $15.99. The earrings were in a Ziploc bag full of jewelry that I bought for $5 at a church Christmas bazaar. I hope you enjoyed this sew along to Simplicity 9553. Please like and share this video with your friends and family. I also love sharing my new, vintage, and out-of-print sewing patterns and my tips, tricks, quick fixes, and even my mistakes when sewing along with you. I also love sharing my wonderful fabric finds that I thrifted from charity shops, as well as brand new fabric online and in store. If you'd like to see more from Budgetsew, please subscribe and press the bell so you receive a notification when I release a new video. If you'd like to stay up to date with Budgetsew, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Budgetsew. Thanks for watching. See you next time.